We have time for a few questions if there are any. Yes, sir.
Do you know how many folks in Akron were among those arrested?
How many people in Akron were arrested? Chief, do you have that
Yeah,
number?
sure. Yeah, we arrested 48 felons in Akron.
Can you talk about the two murder cases? I know one was Canton. What was the second case? And anything that you know about the specifics on that Canton homicide, the victim, when it happened?
So for the Canton case, the crime occurred on May 24th, and the victim was Richard Poole,
How do you spell that?
Poole.
Okay.
Daquan Rucker was arrested the next day. I believe there was a second suspect. However, I do not have information on that for you right now. As for the second homicide case in Akron, I can gather that and get back to you on that one. I don't have it in front of me. And just to clarify, the 48 cases in Akron, that's the focus on Akron's week. The task force, although we focus 1 week at a time in each one of our cities, work does not stop after we go through that surge week. So Akron had the surge week, the week of Memorial Week actually, but the next week, work doesn't stop. We continue to work in the city of Akron, the city of Toledo, and Cleveland, and all along with all of our partners. So that 48 represents that one surge week, and then the overall over 600 represent the 8 weeks throughout.
Daquan spelling?
Yes. Daquan.
What's the difference between just regular police work and arresting somebody within a 12-hour window and the work that you're doing on this task force? I mean, could the officers have just made those arrests as part of the regular investigation of that homicide versus this concerted effort?
I think the goal is to ensure that these cases are wrapped up as soon as possible. And when we have the additional resources and the additional manpower and the focus on this, we're able to take those fugitives into custody sooner rather than later. And really what this does is it keeps our communities safer. If this is a gang shooting, if this is a gang retaliation, hopefully we're able to stop that quickly. I'm not saying that that's what that was, but that's things that we see here in the Northern District of Ohio and why the goal is to get people wanted for homicide off the street so quickly. Homicide as well as shootings.
Chief, do you know if any of these particular neighborhoods were targeted? I know we're talking about individuals, but is there any part of Akron that should feel some more sense of relief than another part that, hey, we got these particular gang members on the street among your 48 or anything like that?
So I wouldn't say specifically an area on that. So these are really more targeted on violent offenders. I think as our partners have shared, we get information, intelligence, felony warrants on violent offenders, which naturally impact our entire community, not just one area. And other operations we may focus or surge in a specific area. That was not the goal here. This was really to look for the violent drivers of violence in our communities. Specifically, as Van mentioned, I highlighted just some of the work that week in Akron, but this was across all the communities. So it wasn't one specific area.
Chief, excuse me, getting guns, illegal guns off the street is not, this wasn't just this operation to do that. Your department works on that routinely. Let's talk about that. As soon as I silence my phone.
No problem. Yeah, so absolutely. With our partners here, we do this work all the time. I think the surge that we're kind of highlighting here is the additional resources that come into each community at one time and the analysts that work on making those cases so where we know where they are. But you hit the nail on the head. We've talked repeatedly in other press conferences around the violence and guns, and we work on that throughout the year with with all the partners actually that are here as well. But that's a focus all the time. So absolutely.
I may have missed this.
I'll just address one thing about your question as well. Part of what makes this unique was trying to alleviate a problem before it became a problem. We have historically seen, as I mentioned earlier, the spike in crime as we head into those summer months. What made this operation different from the typical police work and the great work that goes on a day-to-day basis is everybody surged to the city of Akron across this district to try to tamp that down as best as we could. What doesn't happen on an everyday basis is you don't see the FBI, the DEA, Homeland Security, ATF, and Adult Parole Authority consistently working hand in hand with police in a concerted manner the way we saw during this 8-week period, and that's what really sets it apart. I heard a same question, ma'am.
You actually just answered my question.
Oh, good. All right. You want to say
You made
something?
an effort to be here. I'd like to hear from you about these guns and how they end up getting in the hands. How does somebody accumulate 141 weapons? Where do these the guns, how do these illegal guns get in the hands of these individuals?
Sure. So you know that we've now have the Crime Gun Intelligence Center here in Akron, and part of the focus that we have here, with all of our partners and specifically Akron Police when it comes to gun trafficking is, when these guns are getting into people's hands, it's through people that are unlicensed dealers, straw purchasers, people that are stealing firearms. So that's ultimately we're looking at those people that are involved in firearms trafficking. And that's part of what we focus on at the Akron Crime Gun Intelligence Center. But here, obviously, the mission was going after violent offenders, which showed, hey, violent offenders are obtaining these firearms, which then branch off into other investigations that each of the agencies here will look at.
And these guns, in your professional opinion, are destined for what?
Well, they're destined for crime. I mean, they're destined for shootings. They're destined for murders. So every one of these guns, thanks to this operation that was led by the marshals, every one of these guns was destined for something that was nefarious or criminal in nature. So by what you essentially have with every one of these firearms is a saved life, at least one.
All right, very well said. All right, that's all we have time for, folks. Thank you so much.
Good job, Chief.